captain is out to lunch and the sailors have taken over the ship, by Charles Bukowski. Readings from this book. 2892 1:16 a.m. What do writers do when they aren't writing? Me, I go to the racetrack. Or in the early days I starved or work at gut-wrenching jobs. I stay away from writers now, or people who call themselves writers. But from 1970 until about 1975, when I just decided to sit in one place and write or die, writers came by, all of them poets. Poets. And I discovered a curious thing. None of them had any visible means of support. If they had books out, they didn't sell, and if they gave poetry readings, few attended, say from 4 to 14 other poets. But they all lived in fairly nice apartments and seemed to have plenty of time to sit on my couch and drink my beer. I had gotten the reputation in town of being the wild one, of having parties where untold things happened and crazy women danced and broke things, or I threw people off my porch, or there were police raids, or etc. and etc. Much of this was true. But I also had to get the word down for my publisher and for the magazines to get the rent and the booze money, and this meant writing prose. But these poets only wrote poetry. I thought it was thin and pretentious stuff, but they went on with it, dressed themselves in a fairly nice manner, seemed well fed, and they had all this couch sitting time and time to talk about their poetry and themselves. I often asked, listen to me. Listen, tell me, how do you make it? They just sat there and smiled at me and drank my beer and waited for some of my crazy women to arrive, hoping that they might somehow get some of it. Sex, admiration, adventure, or what the hell. It was getting clear in my mind than that I would have to get rid of these soft toadies, and gradually I found out their secret one by one. Most often in the background, well hidden, was the mother. The mother took care of these geniuses, got the rent and the food and the clothing. I remember once on a rare sojourn from my place, I was sitting in this poet's apartment. It was quite dull, nothing to drink. He sat speaking of how unfair it was that he wasn't more widely recognized. The editors, everybody was conspiring against him. He pointed his finger at me. You told Martin not to publish me. It wasn't true. Then he went to bitching and babbling about other things. Then the phone rang. He picked it up and spoke very guardedly and quietly. He hung up and turned to me. It's my mother. She's coming over. You have to leave. It's all right. I like to meet your mother. No, she's horrible. You have to leave. Now, hurry. I took the elevator down and out and wrote that one off. There was another one. His mother bought him his food, his car, his insurance, his rent, and he even wrote some of his stuff. Unbelievable. It had gone on for decades. There was another fellow. He always seemed very calm and well-fed. He taught a poetry workshop at a church every Sunday afternoon. He had a nice apartment. He was a member of the Communist Party. Let's call him Fred. I asked an old lady who attended his workshop and admired him greatly. Listen, how does Fred make it? Oh, she said. Fred doesn't want anyone to know because he's very private. That way, but he makes his money by scrubbing food trucks. Food trucks? Yes, you know, those wagons that go about dispensing coffee and sandwiches at break time and lunchtime at workplaces. Well, Fred scrubs those food trucks. A couple of years went by, and then it was discovered that Fred also owned a couple of apartment houses and that he lived mainly off the rents. When I found this out, I got drunk one night and drove over to Fred's apartment. It was located over a little theater. Very arty stuff. I jumped out of my car and rang the bell. He wouldn't answer. I knew he was up there. I had seen his shadow moving behind the curtains. I went back to my car. started honking my horn and yelling, "Hey Fred, come on out!" I threw a beer bottle at one of his windows. It bounced off. That got him. He came out on his little balcony and peered down at me. "Bukowski, go away." "Fred, come on down here and I'll kick your ass, you communist landowner." He ran back inside. I stood there and waited for him. Nothing. Then I got the idea that he was calling the police. I had seen enough of them. I got into my car and drove back to my place. Another poet lived in this house down by the waterfront. Nice house. He never had a job. I kept after him. "How do you make it? How do you make it?" Finally he gave in. "My parents own property and I collect the rents for them. They pay me a salary." He got a damn good salary, I imagine. Anyhow, at least he told me. Some never do. There was this other guy. He wrote fair poetry, but very little of it. He always had his nice apartment, or he was going off to Hawaii or somewhere. He was one of those most relaxed of them all, always in new and fresh Presley clothing, new shoes, never needed a shave, a haircut, had bright flashing teeth. "Come on, baby, how do you make it?" He never let on. He didn't even smile. He just stood there silently. Then there's another type that lives on handouts. I wrote a poem about one of them, but never sent it out because I finally felt sorry for him. Here is some of it jammed together. Jack with hair hanging, Jack demanding money, Jack of the big gut, Jack of the loud voice, Jack of the trade, Jack who prances before the ladies, Jack who thinks he's a genius, Jack who pukes, Jack who badmouths the lucky, Jack getting older and older, Jack still demanding money, Jack sliding down the beanstalk, Jack who talks about it but doesn't do it, Jack who gets away with murder, Jack who jacks, Jack who talks of the old days, Jack who talks and talks, Jack with the handout, Jack who terrorizes the weak, Jack the embittered, Jack of the coffee shops, Jack screaming for recognition, Jack who never has a job, Jack who totally overrates his potential, Jack who keeps screaming about his unrecognized talent, Jack who blames everybody else. You know who Jack is? You saw him yesterday. You'll see him tomorrow. You'll see him next week. Wanting it without doing it. Wanting it free. Wanting fame. Wanting women. Wanting everything. A world full of Jacks sliding down the beanstalk. Now I'm tired of writing about poets, but I will add that they are hurting themselves by living as poets instead of something else. I worked as a common laborer until I was 50. I was jammed in with the people. I never claimed to be a poet. Now I am not saying that working for a living is a grand thing. In most cases it is a horrible thing. And often you must fight to keep a horrible job, because there are 25 guys standing behind you ready to take the same job. Of course it's senseless. Of course it flattens you out. But being in that mess, I think, taught me to lay off the bullshit when I did right. I think you have to get your face in the mud now and then. I think you have to know what a jail is, a hospital is. I think you have to know what it feels like to go without food for 4 or 5 days. I think that living with insane women is good for the backbone. I think you can write with joy and release after you've been in the vice. I only say this because all the poets I have met have been soft jellyfish sycophants. They have nothing to write about except their selfish non-endurance. Yes, I stay away from the poets. Do you blame me? Good day at the track. 8/28/91, 11:28 p.m. by Charles Bukowski. Good day at the track. Damn near swept the card. Yet it gets boring out there, even when you're winning. It's the 30 minutes wait between races, your life leaking out into space. The people look gray out there, walk through, and I'm with them. But where else could I go? An art museum? Imagine staying home all day and playing at writer. I could wear a little scarf. I remember this poet who used to come by on the bum, buttons off his shirt, puke on his pants, hair in his eyes, shoelaces undone, but he had this long scarf which he kept very clean. That singled that he was a poet. His writing, well, forget it. Came in, swam in the pool, then went to the spa. My soul's in danger, always has been. Was sitting on the couch with Linda, the good dark night descending. When there was a knock on the door, Linda got it. Better come here, Hank. I walked to the door, barefooted in my robe. Young blonde guy, a young fat girl, and a medium-sized girl. They want your autograph. I don't see people, I told them. We just want your autograph, said the blonde guy. Then we promised never to come back. They started giggling and holding his head. The girl just stared. But none of you have a pen or even a piece of paper. Oh, said the blonde kid, taking his hands from his head. We'll come back again with the book, maybe at a more proper time. The bathrobe, the bare feet, maybe the kid thought I was eccentric. Maybe I was. Don't come in the morning, I told them. I saw them begin to walk off and I closed the door. Now I'm up here writing about them. You've got to be a little hard with them or they'll swarm you. I've had some horrible experiences blocking the door. So many of them think that somehow you'll invite them in and drink with them all night. I prefer to drink alone. A writer owes nothing except to his writing. He owes nothing to the reader except the availability of the printed page. And worse, many of the door knockers are not even readers. They've just heard something. The best reader and the best human is the one who rewards me with his or her absence. $2/21/93, 12:33 a.m. Went to the track today in the rain and watched 7 consensus favorites out of 9 win. There is no way I can make it when this occurs. I watch the hours get slugged in the head and look at the people studying their trot sheets, newspapers and racing forms, many of them left early, taking the escalators down and out. Gunshots outside now as I write this, life back to normal. After about 4 or 5 races, I left the clubhouse and went down to the grandstand area. There was a difference. Fewer whites, of course, more poor, of course. Down there, I was a minority. I walked about and I could feel the desperation in the air. There were $2 bettors. They didn't bet favorites. They bet the shots, the exactas, the daily doubles. They were looking for a lot of money, for a little money, and they were drowning in the rain. It was grim there. I needed a new hobby. The track had changed. 40 years ago, there had been some joy out there, even among the losers. The bars had been packed. This was a different crowd, a different city, a different world. There was no money to blow to the sky, no to hell with it money, no we'll be back tomorrow money. This was the end of the world. Old clothing, twisted and bitter faces, the rent money, the $5 an hour money, the money of the unemployed, of the illegal immigrants, the money of the petty thieves, the burglars, the money of the disinherited. The air was dark, and the lines were long. They made the poor wait in long lines. The poor were used to the long lines. And they stood in them to have their small dreams smashed. This was Hollywood Park. located in the back district, in the district of Central Americans and other minorities. I went back upstairs to the clubhouse, to the shorter lines. I got into line, bet 20 on the second favorite. When you gonna do it?